cosmic consciousness, extraterrestrials and UFOs, sacred geometry, ancient civilizations, spiritual connection, the quantum universe. All of these topics and so much more with your host, Seb Tuck, on Alien Spirit with Seb.
Hello, welcome to Alien Spirit. I'm Seb. Today we have a return guest, the multi-talented Christopher Jordan. Chris is the founder of Curious Research. It's an organization whose mission is to help unite the research of traditional science with fringe sciences like UFOlogy, cryptozoology, and parapsychology. I don't know how much longer UFOlogy is going to stay fringe, though. Let's see. Chris has written the Field Observation and Encounter Log, made specifically for paranormal, cryptic, and UFO field researchers to standardize their field data. And it's really good. It's just every time something happens to you, you see something, you just record it on these 2 pages. And I actually think this would make a really good book for bird watchers. I know Chris through his show Curious Realm, where he's been kind enough to interview me a few times. He and his guests discuss topics related to science, technology, history, culture, and Chris also takes his show on the road. He broadcasts live from various conferences around the country, talking with the guest speakers and talking with the attendees. And one of my favorite shows that Chris has done on Curious Realm is interview his 8-year-old son, Dalbus. It was at the Psi conference in Virginia this past August, which is an excellent conference. The next one next year is in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I intend on going. It's a conference all about your psychic abilities and how to strengthen them. It's mind-blowing, actually, some of the things that we witnessed. So there was a lot going on at that conference. And one of the things that was going on, it was a workshop for children to teach them about mind sight. Now, I had never heard that term before until this conference. Evidently, mind sight means when you see something with your mind. I would say seeing it through your third eye, where you're blindfolded and something is held in front of you and you can see it and you say what it is. So there was a children's workshop there. And Chris's son, Dalbus, was in it. So Chris interviewed Dalbus about how he learned about what mind sight is, how he practiced mind sight, and how he strengthened his mind sight abilities because he was able to do it. I think hearing the opinions of kids is very, very important. So not only was this interview educational, it was very darling too. Okay, plus, Chris is a musical composer. His newest album is Experiencer, Music for Targeted Minds, Volume 2. And it's designed to help relieve PTSD of contactees, because we have that, and others who have had supernatural and paranormal experiences. Chris incorporates binaural beats and pure tone therapy. He creates music for meditation and interdimensional travel. Chris has been a live audio and video engineer for over 20 years. He owns Curious Events, providing audio and video production to a variety of conferences around the country. And in fact, Chris just returned from the International Remote Viewing Association conference. Chris is a remote viewer, and he spoke at the Psi Games in Virginia about remote viewing. We're going to get into a variety of topics, one of them being remote viewing, how you can do it, and why you would want to. Welcome, Chris Jordan.
Hello, Sev.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for returning.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me back.
So we have new things to talk about.
Absolutely.
One of them being your digital book called Awakening Together.
Uh-huh.
Would you like to tell us about that?
Sure. Through my many years working with people like you, working with things like the MUFON ERT, stuff like that, I've noticed a distinct need within numerous communities of peer support, there are amazing support teams like the ERT with MUFON, like IFOUB's team, things like that. But along with a lot of those systems comes having to put your name into a system, comes having to share data, things like that. Sometimes people just want to be able to talk or just hear somebody else who's had an experience so that they can get comfortable with the idea of coming out of their shell. And that was really the inspiration for Awakening Together, was the idea of a peer support group for paranormal experiencers, the idea of a conglomeration of people in your local area who get together no different than an AA group or a peer support group, a cancer support group, things like that, in a non-judgmental space, a non-political, a non-religious space, where advice is not offered or proffered. We are all there to hear about each other's experiences and hear about how we're doing and how we're processing our experiences, because only through sharing that stuff do we get to move further. Does somebody else become open enough to share their experience? So for me, as somebody who spent years in youth ministry, years doing counseling like this, leading groups, and even going to AA groups for my addiction back in the day, I think it's something that is hugely and massively needed within the paranormal communities. There are, once again, numerous communities for various afflictions, things like that, but there is nary a place where you can go and say, I had a succubus visit me last night. Or like myself, I was bilocated in the middle of mass, or I was grabbed by a shadow person, or like you, I was taken and marks were left on my body. There aren't a lot of places that you can go and share those things in an open space.
I agree that this is immensely important, and me approaching Kathleen Martin to talk about it is what changed my life. And because of that, I help experiencers, and I've also hosted experiencer groups. And these groups are, when you're in an experiencer group, the purpose is not to prove that what happened to you happened to you.
Nope.
No one's it's not a court of law.
Exactly.
This is just to say what you have to say, and people without judgment listen. However, I do think there are lots of forums for experiencers, for instance, on Facebook and other forums, but you have to be really careful with that.
You do, because they aren't necessarily anonymous in that kind of way.
And they can be mean.
And they can be, they can be filled with debunkers. They can be filled with people who are just trying to down experiencers, things like that. And that's something that I brought up on the show. I brought it up with Earl Grey before he passed, whenever we covered the Netflix documentary and the ensuing lawsuit that came from Peter Robbins and the experiencer herself. The idea of these divisive documentaries, even things like that call into question the experiencer themselves, really do set forth a path of kind of discouraging experiencers from coming forward.
Yeah, it's hard for me to find experiencers who want to show their face on the news. I get asked a lot from news stations or TV shows, do you have some experiencers for us? And I'm like, no one that wants to show their face. I mean, we're still not there. For those of us who show our face, I don't know.
It's always been a brave foot forward, Steph, and I've always said that with you since day one. I mean, good God, it was Dudes and Beer before it was Curious Realm. And you came on that show to talk about your experience.
That's right. That was when I was first coming out.
Yeah.
That was when I was first coming out.
And
how did we meet? Did we meet at a conference?
We met online.
We did. You contacted me about being a guest, but what happened?
Yep. I am trying to remember whose timeline it was that I saw you on. But I saw your book release and I was like, ooh, this is fascinating.
Oh, wow.
And I reached out to you and you were more than obliging to come on the show. You were like, I love the name of your show.
Yeah, because it sounded like it'd be really fun and not judgmental.
And that was just it,
Dudes and
and that's
beer.
kind of the
Mhm.
idea behind this is the concept of a safe space where you can go, where you know that you will
Yes.
not be ridiculed, where you know that you will not be made fun of because of not just your experience, but you're digging into your experience, you're questioning of your experience.
So your book, your digital book, and it's very well done. It's in
Thank
depth.
you.
Called Awakening Together. It's not just about ETs, but Sasquatch or anything, like we said, supernatural, paranormal.
Yeah.
So this book is good for who? Someone who wants to create a support group or someone who wants to be in a support group?
Right now we are writing the equivalent of the quote big book. I've got a first draft done. I'm doing some editing, things like that. But that will be the official like book that will kind of step experiencers from the moment of experience to the revelation that they need to share this experience. And what it does, kind of the same way that the big book does with AA, where it's like, hey, here's a way to process through what we have right now on our website at curiousresearch.org/support is
Mhm.
the protocols, the 6 pillars of what the group is about, things like that, and the protocols of how to run a meeting. So if you are out there, folks, and remember, like AA doesn't have like a therapist leading a meeting.
Mhm.
Everybody, there are pamphlets that you can order. There are things that are mentioned in the big book. You can go to any Barnes and Noble or whatever and buy a big book. You can buy one on Amazon, but they will tell you generally how to run a meeting in that book. They
Yeah,
will,
the only important thing is if you're running an experiencer support group, you should be an experiencer of some sort.
yes,
That's
yes,
the
you should
important
be.
part, not just an
Absolutely.
outsider coming in
And,
wanting to hear
and,
some good
and
stories.
exactly. And no different than AA. You wouldn't step foot into an AA group if you didn't have a problem with addiction of some sort. So same thing here, same rule applies. It's the idea that we are there for each other, and somebody has kind of taken the mantle locally of leadership to start a meeting, say like at your local public library, in the coffee room, things like
Mhm.
that. I'm currently talking with the city of Cedar Park to rent a room every month to be able to run a once a month meeting here in Cedar Park, just north of Austin.
Oh, that's fantastic. Just
So
north of Austin? Just
yeah,
outside. Oh, that's fantastic.
yeah, and these things I think are important because it does bring about not only a sense of community, but a sense of I am not alone.
Yeah,
I am
that's so
instead
important.
you're e pluribus unum, like any
Oh,
penny out there. Of many, you're one. You're
yeah.
part of a much larger whole of experiencers that are out there. So yeah, it's
Yes. I recently did an experience support group at a conference I did in Colorado called the Snippy Conference.
mhm.
And there were about 10 of us, and 6 people came out for the first time.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Wow.
that's a big deal just to come out for the first time.
Yeah.
And just coming out, just saying it, you immediately feel a release. It's like that. It's incredible how therapeutic it is just to get it out.
Yeah.
Get it out completely with no one interrupting you, no one doubting you. Just get your whole story out. And many of us have many stories, not just
Mhm.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, let's segue into remote
Please.
viewing because
Okay.
that seems to be the flavor of things right now. A lot of people are talking about remote viewing. You're a
Yep.
remote viewer.
Yes, I
You
am.
speak about remote viewing, and you just came back from the IRVA, the International Remote Viewing Association conference.
Yeah.
So please tell us, what is remote viewing? Why would we want to do it? And can you give us some tips on how to do it?
Um, Remote viewing is basically the idea that anybody given a modicum of training can gather data on an unknown target. And when I say unknown, that means that like typically unknown to the viewer and unknown to the tasker or to the monitor. There's a few different ways that remote viewing works. I was brung up by Lynn Buchanan doing the controlled remote viewing military protocol style. There are a lot of protocols involved with that, a lot of checks, balances, things like that. It's very fascinating to see that, because there are different modalities. There's associative remote viewing, all kinds of things. But the laboratory controlled remote viewing that was come up with by Ingo Swann, things like that was used at SRI, Stanford Research Institute, that was used in Project Stargate, things like that, are really the pillar of remote viewing that other things branch off of. And it's interesting, as Lynn Buchanan says, it's not that you're learning to be psychic, it's that you're learning to use your latent psychic ability. And much like anybody with a basketball or a baseball bat or running track, Sev, there are some people out there who just pick up a bat and they're a natural, and they can just ding it out of the park all day long. There are other people who have to stay at the batting machine and work and work and work and work. But it doesn't mean they can't swing a bat. Doesn't mean that they can't hit a ball. They just don't do it as well as the person that does it naturally. So yes, there are some of us out there who have natural tendencies, who have natural mediumship, natural precog would be one of the terms. You got to see some precog action at Psy Games in Virginia, which was fascinating. And the idea of the one that made me cry, actually, I was getting ready to commentate on the dowsing competition, and Jimmy Church came up. Jimmy Church was the only person who had seen this envelope and the message in the envelope, because he wrote it after everybody entered the room. He wrote it outside, sealed the envelope, and came in and gave another person the envelope. And then a nonverbal person, person unable to speak in normal terms, used a letterboard and actually spelled out yellow. They were like, "Are you ready to answer the question?" She spelled yes. They said, "What's the answer to the question?" And she spelled out yellow. And when they opened the envelope, it was, "What color is the sun?" was the question. Sorry, my external light just gave out for some reason.
Your son just gave out. Yeah, the show that mother-daughter duo, Dahlia and her daughter, did. Our chins were on the floor.
And that's just it. That's a part of it too, is precognition. The idea that we are all tapped into this non-local consciousness on some level, is getting more and more common. And the thing I keep saying on my show is it's interesting how since quantum entanglement won the Nobel Peace Prize, that science is now racing to us in the field of paranormal research. They are now interested in a totally different way than they once were. And it's fascinating to see that. It really, really is.
Is remote viewing the same thing as astral travel? Because that's what I call it.
I wouldn't necessarily say so.
Okay.
And this is why. And I would say it even differs from dream work. Because I did a lot of dream work trying to get to the point of astral travel. I could never get to the point. Once I felt like I was falling, I jerked awake every time. And that's kind of one of the points of astral travel, is to get past that point and still be awake and still be lucid. And then things happen in a different way.
I guess we should define what astral travel is.
Yeah.
It might be different for both of us.
So with remote viewing, very specifically, you are tasked. So you are told that you are going to go to this location with this coordinate, and you're going to find this piece of information. And the only coordinate that you're given is an arbitrary set of numbers. That set of numbers may be the date that the target was chosen, like 09/15/25, something like that. It could be as simple as that, but it has nothing at all to do with the actual target itself. And
Okay.
with good remote viewing, you're normally double blind. So even the monitor or the
Yes.
person tasking the person does not know what the target is.
Okay, let's say people want to play at home tonight.
Sure.
Somebody's going to write down a target on a piece of
Mhm.
paper and the other person wants to see it.
Yep.
Okay. Can you tell us how we can do that?
Well, the easiest way to do it is, once again, blind. Don't if you have a kid, then let the kid give the task and the target. Let mom or dad or somebody else choose the target. And the target could be as simple as
Why do you say that?
because you don't want the person it can be very easy as the remote viewer to actively read the monitor or read the person who is targeted.
Oh, sure. Okay. And you don't want
So
to read the kid? Is that what you
you don't want to
Okay.
read the messenger
Oh, okay.
as the viewer. You want to be as blank slate as possible to the target.
Okay.
And then at that point, you start off with what would be an ideogram. You just kind of let your pen flow. You know, like, here's an ideogram right there. I just drew one. And then from there, you're gonna kind of feel the ideogram.
Okay.
Don't
All
judge
right.
your
But
ideogram.
all right. So say,
Go ahead.
all right, you started and
Yep.
you put your pen to the paper. Either you have your eyes closed or open. I don't know. But what's going on in your mind? Like, are you trying to relax? Are you trying to see something? Are you trying to go to the beach or the
As
forest? What are you doing?
that's what is very fascinating, Sev, as opposed to most things where you are very focus oriented when it comes to this. Like dream work, for instance, you're very focused on, I am falling asleep for this reason. I'm falling asleep to find the answer to this
Mm-hmm.
question.
Yeah.
While you have that targeting, what you're trying to do is disassociate your subconscious and conscious mind. So there are protocols that you normally start off with. Like, you'll normally start off with a self-check before you do an ideogram. I can hear a bunch of people from the community right now like, whoa, slow down, Chris. But you start off with the self-check. Like, how am I feeling today? What kind of things have been bothering me? Because all of those things are filters that you may be filtering data through,
Yes.
you know? So you start off with like precogs. Earlier today, I saw a cat in my head. Don't know why. Stray cats are things that are distracting you from your session. So stray cats may be like, man, I've been thinking about waxing the car all day. Don't know why. And you basically write all these things out. Same thing, same reason as for manifestation. You want to get them out of your head.
I see.
You want to check them out so that they aren't there.
Mhm.
And then at that point, when you're calm, you're ready, you draw that ideogram and you start. And it's basically feeling that ideogram along it. And from there, it's adjectives. If you're popping up with nouns like, I see a car, back it up 2 steps. Because that's your conscious mind now giving definition to something and putting definition on something that could just be square and smells like rubber.
Oh, but you're telling it
But
it's a
you're telling
car.
your mind, car.
Oh, I can identify with that. At the Psy Games, do you remember we had to guess what something was in this little trunk?
Uh-huh.
It was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Herba table.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went home that night and I'm like, oh, let me try and see if I can see in that box. And
Yeah.
so what I saw was this long rectangular thing with stripes. So immediately I went in my head, oh, it's a tiger. Okay. So the next day they opened it up and it was a little toy with, what do you call those characters with the big eyes? The Disney like little character. I don't know.
Yeah. It was one of the minions.
Yes, it was a minion. And it was wearing a scarf that was striped.
Yeah.
So I immediately jumped to tiger.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had stayed blank, I might have gotten, oh, it's a scarf, right?
Yeah. Had you, and that's just it. Our brain wants to give something a hard definition. We have to
Yeah.
fight that hard. And that's sometimes where a monitor comes in really handy. A monitor is somebody who's basically worked with you before while you're in session, or worked with others, and they're going to pull you away from those things. Like, okay, you said tiger, cool. Put that over in your stray cat area, and let's move back to the stripes that you were talking about.
Now,
Because
is the
you said
point?
stripes. What kind of stripes? Are you seeing vertical stripes, horizontal stripes? What color
Yeah,
are the
they were
stripes? Do you
vertical,
smell
right?
things with the stripes?
Oh, smell.
Like, and you want to go through all your senses. Can you feel it? Can you taste it? Because, like,
Now, is
believe it
the
or not, you'll get to the point where it's like, I taste salt water.
yes,
And
I
that's
can see
something that
that.
you write down, like, taste
Is
salt water.
is the point to say, oh, that's a scarf, or is the point just to say, look at this long thing with stripes on it?
The point is to gather as much relevant data about the target as possible
Without announcing what it is?
without giving full definition of what it is.
Oh, okay.
But even if you give it full definition and what would be your summary at the end, where you write paragraphs and paragraphs of the object or the target is a location, like you may be given a location and a location and an event, like what is going on at the target, what's happening at the target. And at that point, you may be picking up on people in the crowd. You may be picking up on the space. You may be picking up on the sound of fireworks and oohs and ahs. And it's fascinating because, yeah, it really is a multi-sensory experience. And once again, it's not the idea of trying to focus in on something as though you're meditating. It's as opposed to meditation or even astral projection, where you are trying to silence the monkey mind. You want to give the monkey a typewriter, is what you want to do. You
Mhm,
want to write down everything as unabridged as possible as it comes out of your subconscious mind,
mhm,
without connecting it to your conscious mind.
mhm.
So it's really interesting, and something like I say it all the time on shows, everything. I consider myself a solid C student. All right.
Mhm.
I am no amazing remote viewer, but man, have I seen some amazing remote viewers. I have
Yes.
seen some remote viewers that like draw detail.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of, can we say the person who really created the remote viewing
Mm,
within our government, Ingo Swann,
mm,
and the Stargate project, and how our
yeah.
government's been involved in this called, would you call it warfare, or in other
There was
countries
definitely
around the world?
psychic intelligentsia
Yes,
would be the
yes,
best way to
absolutely.
put it. Psychic intelligence.
And from what I read, the Russians were doing this before we
Mhm.
were. We found out the Russians were doing it, and so
Yep.
we're like, we got to do it too. And
Well,
I
at
would
least
think every
explore it to
government,
see if it was a possibility,
mhm, and it's a real
because
thing, and that's why we
yeah.
continue. Our government continues to do it, and
Well, and
police.
now granted, our government doesn't do it. However, contractors thereof definitely use it. So
And our government uses that information,
it's
though.
now
So
classified under what would be called human or human intelligence.
human
So
intelligence.
same as, hey, Johnny saw Jennifer over there doing this every Tuesday. And Johnny's out in the field. He's a human officer. He's somebody who's gathering human intelligence and human based intelligence. He's not a satellite platform or an electronics platform tapping a phone. He's an actual person out in the field. So,
Okay,
um,
are there rules and regulations, like, if you can do this, please don't go into your next door neighbor's bedroom? Are you
there,
taught ethics?
yes, yes, 1,000% you are taught ethics. And oddly enough, even though the government and the military used it more than the government, oddly enough, and interestingly enough.
Ethics?
No, the remote viewing.
Oh, yes.
But even then, even though it was a military program, there was a hands-off policy. They were not allowed to remote influence targets, even though they had full knowledge that they could.
Who could influence them?
Viewers,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
because
Okay.
viewers,
Yeah, it's a fine line.
good viewers can tell when they're being viewed.
Mhm.
But really incredible viewers can actively fluence things. via distance. And that's something that they were very, very careful to put into the light of day of, we will not be doing that. That's not what this program is.
How did you know that you can do this? Or can you tell us about one of the, what do you call it when you're engaged in a task? Is there a name for that?
In session.
In session. All right. Can
Yeah.
you tell us about one of your in sessions where you realized, oh my goodness, I did it?
It was really my first session, Sev, and I need to digitize it so that I can show it on shows. But it was
Okay, that'd be great.
fascinating. It was fascinating. I had met Lynn Buchanan numerous times from the Stargate remote viewing program. And he'd told me more than once, like, we got along at shows, we hung out, we had drinks, things like that. And he would, I will gladly give you a media pass to go through my program, Chris. And I finally took him up on it. I was like, I will take you up on that, finally. And I did. And I started, his sessions are very easy, very good. They start off very slow. About the first 5 minutes of each video is the last 5 minutes of the previous video. So even if you take a week off or miss a week, it doesn't matter. You watch them at your own pace. And I got a hold of, I'd been in contact with a viewer who watched my show here and there. Tommy, if you're out there listening, hi. Tommy became my monitor. She was a friend that I'd met the first year that I went to IRVA and became a lifetime member. And I chose her specifically because we vibed on a lot of levels. And she had also watched my show. So she had familiarity with my face when ideas dawn on me, when things like that happen. And that's something special in a monitor, to realize, like, hey, wait a minute, you thought about something while you were saying something else. Go back to that thought. I saw that idea dawn on you in mid-session. Let's go back to that idea. Because those are the things that really help you dig in to, like, I smelled red. Well, what did you mean you smelled red? Like, let's get into that. Was it like, what kind of smell was it? Can you taste the smell? Those are things that are very important for a monitor. So I chose Tommy, and my first session was pretty incredible. I would say it was like a B+ session, man. She gave me my target the night before. She was like, I want you to get this target. I want you to sleep on it. You get any precogs, you write them down. Precogs are like immediate impressions whenever you get the target number. And she gave me my target number, and immediately I wrote down white truss. Don't know why.
Truss?
White truss. Truss is kind of like that crisscross pattern that holds up radio towers. It's used to hold up lights on rock and roll stages and flow into the ceiling.
Okay.
It's very common in my industry, but specifically like powder coated white.
Okay.
I saw like powder coated white truss, and I wrote that down. She was like, cool, write that down. We'll get together tomorrow. We got together. We did my session, and my tasking was an event, a location, an event. What is the location and what is happening at the location was my target. So I went, and let me see if I can bring up some of my remote viewing notes, actually, because it was pretty fascinating to go through that stuff and see that there was so much data that was pulled out of it.
Yeah, but
Go
I
ahead.
really want to know what's going on in your mind.
Well,
Are you focused on those coordinates, and you just see those numbers again and again, and then you get these flashes of visions and downloads?
And it's basically, downloads is the easiest way to put it. I hate putting it, and you know the term, I hate putting it in the woo sense like that. But that's the closest thing that you can get to describing it, because literally, like, as you feel and touch that ideogram, things happen. Once again, you'll start tasting things. Like I felt extremes of hot and cold. I saw elevated above me the truss that I was talking about with high power coming off of it. like, and I was like static, like tingling power coming off of it. It was like I have a feeling of looking down and seeing ants scurrying about on the surface of something. Things like that. It's just impressions like that come about that you write down, and occasionally your monitor will be like, okay, dig in deeper to that. And as I went on, it was pretty fascinating, the data that came forth through all of that, because, and let me see if I can once again get to my my remote viewing stuff here, because it's it was pretty interesting. I don't know if I can bring them up on my tablet. Oh no. I should have had them brought up already. I'm sorry, Sev.
Oh,
But
that's
it was things like that. It was stark white, powerful. And when the target was revealed to me, it was actually the Apollo 11 lunar landing.
okay.
And it was the image
Yeah.
where the camera is down and the buggy is up on the hill with white truss with a radar dish on it.
Wow.
So there was my white truss and my high energy.
Okay. So what
Things
went
like
through your
that.
mind when you saw that you hit it?
When I saw that I hit the target, my gut fell. Honestly, it was one of those like, wow. It really
Like, who
did
knew it
blow
was
my
this
mind, because
easy? Yeah.
I got easily 80% of what I wrote down was somewhere in that target. And it was fascinating to me, just the idea of like, wow, first time out. And I saw my brother do the exact same thing and I'll always say I'm somewhat empathic, sure, but I am no clairvoyant, Sev. I've had
Mhm.
moments in my life where I've had dreams about friends and I've told them about things and they happen, all
Mhm.
kinds of stuff, to the point where people started telling me, like, stop telling me what you see about me in your dream. I
Mhm.
don't I don't want to hear it anymore. But aside from that, I'm no psychic. I can't get Zener cards in that kind of way, the squiggly lines and squares.
Yes.
Um
Well,
so
tell
it's
us
fascinating.
why we would want to engage in remote viewing other than doing psycho warfare, trying to find where
Sure.
hostages are, trying to find where
Y-
hidden loot is.
Yeah.
Why would the average person want to engage in remote viewing?
I would think that the average person wanting to remote view would really come from the curiosity of connection. The
Connection to
idea,
what?
yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Literally, the idea that you are connected to everything. And you can call this Akashic records if you want. You can call it all kinds of things. But the idea that you can pull data about something from a distant location at any level, like my 8-year-old did it,
Yes, he did
you
it.
know?
Yeah,
Um,
that's what's so great about these kids is that they go into it thinking, "Sure, I can do this." Like, they don't
yeah,
have the limitations that we have as adults.
yeah. If you don't tell them that, hey, somebody's going to show you something, but you aren't going to see what it is. If that's what you tell them, you'd be surprised how blocked they are. But when you're like, hey buddy, they're going to put a blindfold on you and they're going to ask you if you can see stuff, let me know if you can, you know
Yeah.
that leaves things open ended.
Mhm.
And he was able to, and there's
Yeah.
video of him like teaching the other children how to do it,
Yes.
all kinds of things. It was
So
beautiful and
cute.
amazing.
Yeah, I
um
love that they were extending this knowledge to the children at
yeah,
that conference. I thought that
yeah.
was absolutely wonderful.
No,
Mhm.
exactly. It was a huge one for me. The idea that they are, and that's just it. To loop this conversation back to where we started, Sev, it's the idea of normalizing that. It's
That's
the
right.
idea of making people realize, hey, it's okay, you
Well,
know?
it's normal, and we do
Yeah,
it 24/7. We're just not
absolutely.
conscious of it. We're
Yeah,
constantly downloading information from all over, and we're not even realizing it.
yeah. No,
Mhm.
we're much too busy actually staying awake, alert, upright, things like that. It's in all sincerity, yeah, that's half of what our dreams are. Is what
Okay.
we did not have time to process while we were awake and upright and moving forward in the world. We didn't have
Yeah.
time to process that. We had time to react to it, but not to process it. And that's why I made that differentiation, even though you can remote view in your dreams. And it's fascinating because yes, you can give yourself a target to focus on in your dream. And what's really interesting is sometimes the data that will come to you is so much better because your conscious mind is completely disconnected from it.
Yes.
Completely disconnected. The only thing you've done is program your subconscious with a target.
Oh, that would be the best time to do remote viewing while you're sleeping. Is that
So
part of the training?
yes and no. It depends on which protocols of remote viewing you're following, but that's much more in the world of dream work.
Why do you
And
have to follow a protocol? Why can't you
well,
just kind of figure out how to do it on your own?
the protocols are I mean, I guess you could figure out how to do high magic on your own as well, but you may end up doing some bad things along the way.
High magic.
Really the main reason about protocols, Sev, is they are tried and true and proven methods.
I see. Right.
So and
it's a guide.
especially if you're transitioning from the world of mediumship, things like that. When it comes to mediumship, your goal is normally to give concrete answer. You know, that's what your client is expecting is concrete answer. But it's different when it comes to remote viewing. You know, even though you want to give you want to give concrete data, not necessarily the concrete answer as to what that is. Because you may not
that's
be
a
able
good
to
way to
tell
put
what that
it.
is. And it's
Right.
okay that you can't tell what that is. What you're doing is giving data on the target.
See, you're just gathering data and presenting it over.
That's
That's
right.
it.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay.
And there's a difference there. So
Yes,
yeah,
there
if you're transforming from one to the other and moving from one medium to the other, no pun intended, with the medium there. But if you're moving, let's say, from spiritual mediumship into this, the two are very akin, but you definitely need to have that protocol in place to separate things. And once again, I find it very important. A lot of remote viewers work solo. Absolutely. They do not work with a monitor, not in that kind of way where like somebody is watching them. But what they may have is somebody who monitors them in post, who they then give their session to, who asks questions and has them dig further, you know. And then it becomes a secondary session. And sometimes a session may go on for weeks, sometimes for years, depending on the target and the tasking, you know. So yeah, you can always draw more data. And what's interesting is some people are better at different parts of remote viewing than other people. Some people are
how
much
is
better.
it in different parts? What do you
Well,
mean?
there are, let's say, like medical readings, where you can these are used frequently in criminal cases, FBI cases, things like that, where you can give physical profile of somebody, like this person has a limp in their left leg. They've been injured somehow in their left leg. And that target may be the victim or it may be the perpetrator. You don't know. All you know is that you've got a quote missing persons target, something like that. And it's been started to be used quite frequently. There are people like Pam Coronado. She had a very famous show on television where she's a remote viewer and an intuitive and a medium, and she gets in pretty deep with people like the FBI, stuff like that. It's fascinating to see the number of trafficking cases that use remote viewers to track down the traffickers.
Yes.
All kinds of things.
There's another aspect of this that I'm very interested in, so we could just like push it out a little further.
Yeah.
the government or organizations, let's just say organizations who are engaged in remote viewing, are they also engaged in reading other people's minds remotely? Are they also engaged in maybe sending some kind of being, some kind of supernatural or multidimensional being to someone else? What are your thoughts on these? My personal thought is there are organizations who can do this, is my personal thought. I'd like to know what you think.
You know, I am of the mind that your average everyday person with a general EVP recorder could do that. And it's something that I bring up on my show regularly. The idea of, if you are investigating, if you are doing these things, should you be digging rabbit holes before you go out on investigation? Should you be digging deep into histories of locations and things like that, and watching YouTube videos about the location and getting hyped? You may actively be manifesting what you're going to investigate just by doing that. And that is actively the source of remote viewing. Was a paper that was written long ago, back in the late 50s, early 60s. The concept of, are scientists adversely affecting their experiment when they go home and think about their experiment?
Well, quantum physics says yes.
Well, and that's just it. That means that if you are obsessing about a paranormal location that you're going to investigate, you are actively tinkering with that location before you ever get to it.
Altering it? That's right.
You may be altering it.
Because quantum physics says the moment a tiny particle is noticed, it changes.
Yeah.
It goes into action.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It has to freeze in order to be viewed. It almost has to know that it's being viewed. And
then it comes alive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fascinating concept, when you start looking at that stuff. And when you start considering the connections to things like paranormal, UFO. So could somebody do that? Yes. I would, once again, though, I think anybody with a Ouija board, whether or not they're bringing a spirit through, may be adversely affecting that on their own to begin with, but I don't think, once again, the government does not use remote viewers. Contractors thereof do. So
Stargate was a government program.
Stargate was a government program. Yes, it was funded partially by CIA funds, funded partially through the U.S. Army, things like that. It was done under the Defense Intelligence Agency, all kinds of things. But once again, once that program stopped, the government was technically out of the remote viewing business.
Not really.
There are agencies. The FBI will hire somebody that does remote viewing, but the FBI doesn't have a remote viewer.
Okay.
So that's the very careful distinction. And it's a very careful distinction for a reason, because it allows for compartmentalization, and it also allows for full plausible deniability. When you put things like this under human gathered intelligence, it changes the classification of things. So yes, remote viewing is still used, but it is not used by the U.S. Air Force. It is not used by the U.S. Army. It might be used by Blackwater, who contracts with the U.S. Army.
They are using the information that is being, they're accessing it and using it. So the government is using it.
No different than they're using data given to them by civilian satellites. But that's not their satellite. So that satellite is allowed to go over places that military satellites aren't. Because if the military satellite went over that, then it would be an act of war. Very kind of like the U-2 spy plane was a civilian plane. It was not a military plane. That's why it had no markings.
Yeah, we're just splitting hairs here.
Well, I mean, it's an important definition, though. Whenever you ask, does the government have a unit of people who are manifesting things to do this? The answer is no. The government does not. So And once again, could people do that? Sure. But once again, the protocols, even for the military remote viewing program, was very Star Trek, and you do not interfere.
All right, so if the military has a remote viewing program, to me, the military is government.
The military doesn't have a remote viewing program. They had one back in the 60s.
You don't think they would? They thought
They do not have it anymore.
I don't
Once
believe
again,
that they cut
it's
it and they never
it's
had another one
defunded.
again. I don't believe
Defunded.
it.
Well, once again, there are numerous agencies who still contract with the government that do it,
Yeah.
but the government does not do it.
Okay.
So that it is an important distinction,
Well,
because the government doesn't do it.
You and I are just guessing. We're just giving our opinions. We really, honestly do not know. We're just talking.
I'm just coming at you from the people who are actively contracted by the government to do it.
I know,
That's
but
their
you
definition,
can't-
because that's what the
but
actual
secret program is
intelligentsia
a secret
definition is.
program.
Oh,
So,
no, I'm with you. A secret program that was fully stopped and fully declassified.
At one point, right? And then if another one was started up, we wouldn't know about it.
Well, technically not.
Anyway, that part isn't important. What's important
really.
is that it is a tool that
It
is being used by countries around the world.
It's being used not only by countries around the world, it is being used by private industry around the world. There are private industries that are using remote viewers to find asteroids to capture for rare earth minerals like gold and all kinds of things. So there are companies that are using remote viewers to help find optimum sites on the moon and Mars to land.
All right, well, let's talk about these remote viewers who are being asked to do sometimes what we would call unethical things.
I don't know any remote viewers that have been asked to do unethical things, and that's even people that were in the government remote viewing program when it existed.
Okay.
That's just a fact. That's Lynn Buchanan, Paul H. Smith, Dale Graff, who was the former head of the Stargate remote viewing program.
Do you really think that organizations associated with the government did not use remote viewing for nefarious reasons?
I can tell you right now, they didn't.
Okay.
Whether organizations did or not, but the actual viewers themselves were never tasked to do so.
Okay. You have never met anyone that's been tasked to do something like that?
Nope. Okay. Never once. Not amongst a single remote viewer from the Stargate government remote viewing program. And I have met quite a few. And have the actual documents and things like that on my knowledge vault.
So this now leads us into psionics and Jake Barber.
Absolutely.
And knocking down these spaceships to sell them. As Jake Barber says, the reason for his Skywatcher business is to recover exotic material. That's what he says. Remote viewing is used. Would you say remote viewing is used in that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure that it could be used in that. I mean, it can be used to gather information on any target. But if he is the person who's running the things to go do that, I don't know why he would have to remote view to do it. Because once again, if you know the location or you know the target, it's technically not remote viewing. So there's that.
What? Say that again.
If you know the location or you know the target, it is technically not remote viewing.
What if you know the location and you know the target?
Remote viewing is done blind.
What if you know the location and you know the target, but you don't know what's inside the building and you enter the building? Is that remote viewing?
But you know the location.
Right.
Yeah.
But you entered the building with your mind.
Sure.
Would that be considered remote viewing?
To an extent, but you're talking much more about clairvoyance at that point.
Yeah. So what's the definition of remote viewing then?
Remote viewing is once again being tasked with a target number. That's why definitions are hugely important, because there's different modalities of remote viewing.
Right. You just brought up the clairvoyance and getting all that mixed in with you too. All the different size. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are numerous psi abilities, but specifically when
Mhm.
it comes to remote viewing, you're talking about something where you are being given a target that you are unaware of.
I see.
So
Okay,
you are
I
not
got it.
aware of the location or anything like that.
And then
The
they'll
only
just give
thing
us
you're
the
told
data.
is yes,
Yeah, I see red, I
exactly.
see white, I see grass, I see a
Yeah,
car.
yeah,
That.
and even if
Don't
even if
tell me
it's
what it
a
is.
yep, even if it's a missing person, something like that, it's the fact of you may be, and that's what they call front loaded. You may be front loaded with a bit of data, but you would never be front loaded with the location of a person or
Mhm.
anything like that.
Mhm.
You may be told that you are looking for a missing person, but
Yeah.
you're not told if that person is alive or dead or if they were last seen in Wyoming.
Mhm. But you're told you're looking for a person.
You're told your
Okay, but
target is a person.
that's it.
That's it.
A person, male, female. Do you
Your
get
target is
anything?
a person. Describe the target. Your target number is
That's it. That's all you would
18652.
get.
That's it. That is your quote tasking.
Ooh, that sounds like a tough one. Your
So
target is a person. Can't tell you if it's alive, dead, what country.
male,
Can't tell you if
female.
they're on the ocean, on land. Can't tell you in the sky. Nothing.
Nope. Nope. Nothing else is given to you other than
Ooh,
describe the target.
that would be amazing if
So
you could do
yeah,
that.
and once again, the details of male, female, ethnicity, anything like that are utterly obscured to the viewer typically. And that's
Mhm.
something that you really kind of have to be careful for, especially in the social media world out there, because there's a lot of people out there that are like, quote, remote viewing teachers. Um, if they aren't following those protocols, it's not really remote viewing. They may be teaching you a form of
Mm.
mediumship of some sort or a form of clairvoyance, but it is not remote viewing. And
Okay,
that's
so
a
remote viewing, it sounds like they're trying to make it as scientific as
it
possible.
is a scientific. It started in a
Okay.
lab. Like remote viewing started in a lab, period.
Mhm.
So it has been scientific, and that's just it. Psi games, you got to experience a lot of show of psi ability that was
Mhm.
still being metriced for the lab while it was happening. So all those metrics were being gathered as though it was a laboratory experiment. Every one of those competitions.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, who was
So
compiling that data? What do you mean?
there were computers hooked up to all of that stuff. So they were actively taking all of the hits and misses, everything else, and
For
databasing it.
whom?
Well, for psi games and
No, I mean
for other
actively
psi
taking
work.
that data and then giving the data to whom?
Well, it's going into databases for remote viewing, things like that. There have been numerous databases that have been created over the years for remote viewing, as well as other psi abilities that have been out there for a long time. So these, once again, um,
Hmm.
remote viewing started in a lab, probably as opposed to any other parapsychological research. Remote viewing has more actual lab data attached to it than any other. It's pretty fascinating when you start digging into it, to
Mhm.
the point where it is beyond statistical anomaly.
Yes. Well, it's a real thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And anybody can do it, would you
yeah,
say?
yeah. Oh no, that's just it. Anybody can be taught to remote view. Anybody can remote view. The only difference, just like anybody can be taught to play kickball, as long as you got a foot and a leg you can swing, you can play kickball. There's going to be some people who kickball better than other people kickball, you
Mhm.
know, and that's just a natural thing. With practice, everybody can get good at kickball. There are some people who naturally just kick butt at kickball, you
Mhm.
know. It's
Kickball takes me back to what's
that
that, junior high or
yeah,
elementary
yeah.
school?
Well, and that's just it. It's a game that we've all played, that we were all able to play at 5, 6 years old,
Yeah.
you know. And when you get to high school, you may be a little bit better at it. And
Mhm.
when you get to college, you may be better at it. And when you join an adult kickball team, you may go semi-pro
That
because
used to
those
be
things
is that
exist.
still big? Are people are, like,
In
young
some places,
it
yeah, no,
used to be
there's
big,
adult
I think what
kickball
was that,
teams.
in the '80s or the '90s? I remember kickball leagues
Oh yeah,
when I was
yeah.
living
No,
in the
they
city.
there's still a thing. There's still a thing at your local Y, stuff like that.
All right, Chris, thank you. This is excellent.
Absolutely.
Tell us how, I have a few graphics here I haven't shared yet.
Oh,
Here is your logo.
yeah.
Okay, tell us how we can find out about Curious Realm.
You can find out about Curious Realm at curiousrealm.com. Our events page, curiousrealm.com/events, is where you can find all of our live coverage from events. I guess it was event 27 was IRVA. IRVA was event 27 that we have covered thus far. So tons of content there, always new content, never repeat stuff. We're live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central. You can find us at curiousrealm.com or on any podcast or video platform, YouTube, all that kind of good stuff. And then, of course, Curious Research, which is where you can find curiousresearch.org/support. That is the Awakening Together protocols that you can download and start your own paranormal support group there locally. Once again, we're busy getting the paranormal big book together for Awakening Together, so that
we have this.
And of course Experiencer, which is the second CD in my thus far 3 CD set. Experiencer was made specifically for people who have had a close encounter of the third or fourth kind, to help them shed the PTSD and retie with earthbound frequencies. So
that's important, because we all go through mental turmoil.
Absolutely.
You have a lot of music here. I'm just slowly flashing up the covers of
the hours and hour. The latest album was actually in the Targeted Mind series, was Remote Viewer, which is actually an hour-long track to prepare your brainwaves for remote viewing sessions.
Really? Where's that?
I don't know if you have a picture of that one.
Oh, we can get that on your website?
There you go.
So should we listen to that as we're remote viewing or before?
Technically before.
Oh, that's cool, Chris.
You can listen to it during as well, but some people find music distracting while they view.
I can understand that. But that CD can maybe also prepare you for lucid dreaming or astral travel or intense
actually
meditation.
the one that you popped up, Music for Cosmic Journeys, is specifically dialed for astral travel, astral projection, things like that.
And this is, you can listen to it while you're engaged in your meditation or before.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Christopher Jordan.
Always a pleasure, Seb. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.